Hey guys, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another episode of Achieving Perfection. This is for the Great Tournament and the White, Blue, Black node. So I'll go ahead, show the two decks that I have set up, and then I'll go over them and then get into deck building if you can't build either of them. So the first choice, this is going to be for the Mill node, is going to be Liliana, and I'd go with something sort of like this. And our second option is to go with Bolas. You can use any of the Bolases. I just like the Ravager the most. And you can go with something like this. All right, the node itself. So, I should add, by the way, if you have the Eye Collector right there, yep, that's going to be amazing, right? Anyways, the node. Don't get distracted. So this one's a little bit tricky. So you have a perma support that says whenever a support you control with the artifact or enchantment subtype gains shield, destroy the top 4 cards of each player's library. Then the first creature card in your hand gains 3 mana. The objectives for this one are going to be win the fight, and then Millstone, have 20 or more cards in your opponent's graveyard during a single fight, and Foundry, cast 3 or more artifact supports during a single fight. So ideally here in this node, you're going to be making a bunch of artifact supports, and those are going to be milling cards from your opponent, and then they're also going to be giving all of your creatures mana. So if we take a look at the decks, in Liliana Defiant Necromancer here, Eye Collector is amazing for this node. It's an uncommon, so hopefully you were able to pick it up. And it's a 2/2 flying for 7 that says whenever this creature deals combat damage, destroy the top 4 cards of each player's library. So with this one, it attacks 5 times, and you've completed your mill objective. The other creatures I threw in here are just X or more creatures, so they're pretty strong for uncommons, both Ugin's Conjurant and Oathsworn Knight. If you have better creatures, you should definitely use better creatures, but these two are pretty strong for their costs. Manifold Key is a really cool artifact to run in this node. If you have better artifact options, once again, use those. But this one has an activate ability that says another artifact support you control gains 1 shield. So each time you activate a gem, you're going to mill 4 cards from your opponent, and you're also going to gain 3 mana for each of the creatures in your hand. So this card here is pretty cool, just in conjunction with the perma support. For mana, you're going to get Witch's Cottage. So this is a land that converts to black. And Gateway Plaza, this converts to gems of your Planeswalker colors. So in this case, just black. Sword of the Animist is a nice one to throw in. It's an Origins rare, it's 7 mana, and your first creature gets +2/+2 and destroys a 3/3 gem when it attacks. So this is going to help you with mana conversion, and also very importantly, it's going to go ahead and help trigger off this Manifold Key, which will then give the sword itself more shields and mill cards from your opponent. And then finally, we've got some removal. So Engrath's Rampage for killing creatures and vanguards, and Death Sprout for killing creatures and getting lands. So, Heraldic Banner is another artifact. It's got activate to convert gems to your Planeswalker colors, and that's another one that Sword of the Animist is going to help with. So if you use the general core of this deck, that should work out pretty well for you, especially in the lower tiers. In Platinum, this isn't super strong. I've tested these things out. I would go ahead and swap out Oathsworn Knight and Ugin's Conjurant, like I said, if you have more powerful creatures, but definitely keep Eye Collector in there. For the more powerful deck, Bolas the Ravager. All right, so here, you'll see that I've got some pretty big deal artifacts. I've got Embercleave, so that's going to make creatures pretty killer. We've got Bloodletter Quill, and this is amazing for this objective. I'll get into it in just a minute. And Sword of Sinew and Shield. The sword is going to destroy an opposing vanguard and an artifact whenever it attacks. And ideally on this node, you're going to be going up against a bunch of artifacts, so this should get rid of them. In the event that you get locked in sort of like a pseudo mirror match where your opponent's running this sword, you'll kill it, especially if you're the one that's attacking first. Now the Quill. The Quill is going to reinforce itself every turn, which means that every turn it's going to mill 4 cards, and it's going to give each of your creatures 3 mana. Now I know that when the Quill ultimately pops, it gives them all full mana, but nonetheless, this card is going to be very useful for this particular node. If you don't have this, you can use the Rakdos Blood Knife too. Unfortunately, they both happen to be masterpieces, so if you don't have them, obviously you can't use them. For creatures, I went ahead and threw in Golos. I love Golos for this node. Razia is amazing for all nodes, especially if you equip Razia. So if you get Embercleave on Razia, that's basically just game over. And then Eye Collector. This one, if you get Embercleave on Eye Collector, it's going to hit twice per turn. And since it's whenever it deals combat damage, it's going to actually trigger that mill for twice. And if you actually hit through something, because it's got double strike and trample, it could actually wind up dealing its damage 3-4 times in a turn. So that's pretty darn good. I've got Finale of Revelation for card draw, and so the land that I threw in with Death Sprout is Castle Vantress. This is the blue gem converter, and it also has activations to draw more cards, so that's going to help keep the hand stocked. Killer Instinct, this is just to go ahead and fetch things. It's going to fetch Razia's, Golos's, Eye Collector, and that's all fine and dandy. When you're playing this node, make sure that you're prioritizing playing the artifacts and charging up removal. The creatures will come. So with Bloodletter Quill, you're going to be able to play the creatures. It's not a big deal. In playing the other artifacts, it's not going to be a big deal to play the creatures. Make sure that you don't necessarily play Killer Instinct first and then start throwing down like Embercleave and Sword of Sinew and Shield, because Sinew and Steel, because then you might find that you're killing your opponent too quickly, and you don't want that. Now, what are some other options for this? So what you're going to want to do for this one is you go ahead, you're going to plug all these sets in here, and honestly what you're going to want to do is type in library. And the reason why you're going to want to type in library is because most of the cards that destroy things from your library or from your opponent's library can be searched using just typing in library. So Sir Conrad the Grim is pretty good. He's got an activate ability that destroys the top 4 cards of each player's library. I don't like him as much as some of the things that I am using just because it's an activate gem, and so you're kind of at the whim of activating those gems. But at the same time, it's pretty effective, right? Some other options that you've got, I'm digging through here. Oh yeah, right, I should show all cards. There's a whole bunch of things that I don't have. Ashiok is amazing for this one. That -1 is going to destroy the top 4 cards of your opponent's library and make it harder for them to cast things, which is really good. Folio of Fancies is amazing for this. With the Resourceful, it's going to destroy the top 2 cards of your opponent's library, and it already is going to make you draw 2 cards instead of 1 at the start of your turn. So with some more card draw, you'll achieve that objective super easily. And let's not forget, this is also an artifact, so it's going to help you achieve both parts of the objective. So if you were lucky enough to get that mythic, I would go ahead and plug that into one of the decks. There is a removal card. I'm going to have to look for it a different way. But Altar of Dementia is a great choice for this node. It's an artifact, and it's going to mill things really quickly. So if you have this card, that's kind of like a best case scenario for this particular one. And that really about does it. There was one other removal card from the new set. It's a rare. I'm going to get rid of library. I think it's going to be off of the keyword destroy, right? Destroy, because I think it just destroys cards from the deck. Yeah, so Drown in the Loch is pretty decent. This one's going to destroy cards from the top of each player's deck, and then it's going to go ahead and potentially destroy a creature or drain mana from your opponent's hand. That's not bad. Vantress Gargoyle could be pretty decent. It really just depends on how the mill mechanic works. So if it's like guaranteed or if it's a confirmed cancel. So that's what I'd go for that. For artifacts, ding, 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 ding. All right. You could go enchantments, right? I mean, that's okay for getting the mill piece, but you need artifacts for the objective. So honestly, you're going to want to go ahead and find just your artifacts. And so when you go through your artifacts, you want things that can give themselves more shields. Now, I'm sure that there are going to be more than the things that I'm showcasing here, but the right knife here is going to gain shields every time you lose a creature. And so the right knife actually is going to work really well in conjunction with the Altar of Dementia, because you need to lose creatures for this. And so if you use those two together, you're going to be increasing your creature's power, you're going to be getting mana, and you're going to be milling. So that'll be pretty decent. You could use Plague Boiler. This one reinforces itself on activations, and with those reinforcements, you're going to be milling your opponent. You're going to get removal from this. So that's another pretty decent option. I've already shown the Bloodletter Quill. I absolutely love that card for this particular node. And then the other pieces here that you see, you really just throw in what you have and try and make it work. So with that, the last thing I'm going to add to this is you're going to need removal from your creatures in some way. I'm using Razia as removal, and I'm using Embercleave to help me with that. But because you're not going to have as much room for removal spells in your deck in this node because of the other nonsense you have to throw in, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you've got some kind of creature that's going to be able to help you wipe the board. So for this one, Rakdos is going to be really darn good. Not the one that destroys all non-demons, right? So not that one. Let's see. Well, we'll scroll down. Frost Titan's going to be really good for this node. It's going to freeze things down, which is going to be great for you. Where did you go? There's just so many cards. Dream Eater is actually a pretty decent option here. You bounce things. You can use that to make it so that you don't burst too quickly. Etrata is amazing here, just for wiping your opponent's board for your creatures. Here we go, the Showstopper. This one's going to go ahead, destroy your opponent's board. Like I said, I'm using Razia. I like her, but she's going to be an amazing choice for this node. So make sure that your creatures are doing more for you than just coming out and being big baddies. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that they provide you with some other form of board control. So with that, that's really it. Hopefully this helps, and it helps you go perfect, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.